Charles Smith. Wow. Well, wait till you hear Charles's story. He had trauma when he was young. His mother died when he was 5. His father had his businesses taken away, and they moved and were various locations, 10 different homes in 11 years. He's in the Navajo reservation where he was treated. It was like a ceremony he was involved in involuntarily. His father died when he was 11 and fell into addiction, and went into the military where there was trauma there, an explosion in a tank, and was in Gitmo. Just PTSD from when his mother died all the way through the military. Just absolute incredible childhood story, and how he turned it around with exercise and martial arts, and meditation and yoga, and what he does now. He's now a 7-time author. He's written 7 books, and he teaches people how to cope with trauma, and don't give up. My very first question I asked Charles is, what do you hope people can learn from your experience? And just an incredible story of a man who not only turned it around for himself and for his son, beautiful 10-year-old son, but he decided to turn around to others, and to help others, help veterans, help people who have PTSD. He attempted suicide at one point. He was a carver. He carved in his body, "F you to the world," and just an incredible, inspiring story. Charles Smith. You're going to really enjoy this conversation. Thanks so much for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission: how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, and their passion, and their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Smith, thank you so much for doing this. So, what is the greatest lesson, that you hope people can learn from your experiences?
Don't give up hope. Keep on pushing. As bad as things get, just don't give up. You fall 10 times, get up 11.
Yeah, and you've proven that with your story. I mean, it's an absolutely incredible story. The good news is that you're here with us. You're helping those who need. You're helping people who don't need it. By the way, like yourself, myself, you inspire me. You have a beautiful son, and it's absolutely wonderful. So it kind of started there in Worcester, in Massachusetts. I'm in New Haven. I'm just south of you.
Right.
Yeah, and
Oh, okay.
it all kind of started when you were a kid, and your father had some great businesses, and it all kind of fell apart.
Yeah, exactly. My father owned multiple nursing homes, and he had land in Worcester. And one day he just lost it all. And my grandfather actually built a duplex for my parents and us to live in, and then he rented out the other side to my other aunt. But yeah, it was just like sudden, and
To
nobody
this
knows
day.
what happened. Nobody knows. Yeah, to this day, nobody knows exactly what happened. My grandfather knew,
Wow.
but he took it to his grave.
And
Yeah,
then
yep, yep.
and then your mother passes and you start going you were in a Navajo reservation?
Yeah, my mother passed away when I was 6 of an overdose, pills and alcohol. And then my father took me and my sister out to Arizona, and we actually moved to
Yeah.
10 different houses. I have a book, my first 11 years of my life, and I call it 10 Homes in 11 Years. And we lived on a Navajo reservation in Arizona. My father was a chef, and they hired him as a chef at the college over there. And then we moved to Van Horn, Texas, which was a little spot, hole in a wall. Um, when I was there, I understand now we fly
Hmm.
shuttles out of there,
Really?
space shuttles out of there. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it was a little hole in the wall on the Texas Mexico border. That's where my
You
father passed
mentioned,
away.
when you were younger at the Navajo that there was some kind of they forced you to become a blood brother? What do you recall about that? That I don't I know very little about Navajo and just reservation life.
Yeah, I was a minority. I mean, I honestly their views is
Hmm.
I didn't belong there because I was white, and um, they one time they held me down. The kids held me down. They invited me over to this person's house, and I they cut my hand, and then someone else cut their hand, and then we exchanged blood, and they basically said,
Wow.
"You're one of us now." Yeah, yeah. It was really
Did they treat you differently
weird,
after that?
to say the least. I was treated a little differently still after that. Yeah, yeah, yep. Until we left, um, I had to deal with that. I had to deal with. They have a folklore about
Hmm.
a skinwalker, and what a skinwalker is kind of like a werewolf, but it takes human shape, but then it can take animal shape, and it walks around with skins of animals on its back, skins of its victims on its back. And they used to constantly, granted, I was maybe like 8 or 9, they would constantly tell me that the skinwalker is going to kill me and the skinwalker is after me and this and that. And I remember one time I was in my house, my father was working, me and my sister were in my house. My sister decided to shut off all the lights, and my dog was in the house. She shut off all the lights and left, and all of a sudden I just see these two eyes
Wow.
coming at
Sure.
me. Like, you know how a dog's eyes are when it's they're just coming at me. And I'm just like I'm freaked out to no end. And shortly after that, I don't know why, but my father left that job, and then we moved to Van Horn, Texas. My He had a
See.
lot of health issues. Like before we even left Massachusetts, he had 2 strokes.
Wow.
Yeah, he was 30 years older than my mother.
See.
He was an older gentleman.
And you talk about
Yeah.
he died in your arms there in Texas at 11.
Yeah, we were in a dirt poor apartment. Like Me and him shared a bed, a full size bed, and no mattress. I mean, no box spring, just a mattress. And we had cardboard boxes that we kept our clothes in, and um, the list goes on and on. But I woke up one day and he's making coffee, and I just have like this really
Wow.
eerie feeling come over me. Yeah, and I go over to him, I hug him, and I'm like, Dad, I want to stay home from school. He's like, No, you missed too much already. You gotta go. So I went in the bathroom and I shoved my finger down my throat so I would get sick. Proved to him that I didn't feel good. And then I went back to him. Hey, threw up, and he let me stay home. We dropped my sister off at school, and then we went to a store. And at the store, he passed out, and the store clerk knew him and gave him orange juice because he knew that he was a diabetic. And then he came to, and then we went back to our house, and we were there. I don't know, maybe an hour, and he passed out again. And then I ran over to my neighbor's house, and I told the neighbor what was going on, and she ran over, and he was still unconscious. We brought him to the hospital, and at the hospital he came to, and then I was right there, and he just looked at me, and then it was gone. We were um, holding each other's hand, and then he was just gone.
And you said you went into
Yeah,
a deep shock. You actually didn't speak for 6 months.
yeah, and I totally forgot about that. My when I wrote my book, 10 Homes in 11 Years, I there's a lot that I forgot about my childhood. So I talked to my sister about it, and she told me that when I came home from Van Horn, Texas, to Massachusetts, I didn't even speak to her for 6 months. Yeah, and I was just in a um, you know, such shock because of everything that I just went through in the past 11 years. And yeah, it's funny in a way how, and not haha funny, but it's funny in a way how PTSD
Mm.
does that. Trauma does that. It just erases the memory out of your
Hmm.
head as a part of self-preservation.
You soon, and I appreciate you reliving this and talking to me about it. You replaced kind of hatred with resentment. You felt like the world owed you, and you started becoming an
Yeah.
addict.
Yep. Yep. A lot of my, well, from like 12 to 18, I did whatever I could to get myself in trouble. I was very I acted out at every turn I had. I got caught stealing at a couple different stores. I got into fights, this and that, and I did. I felt like the world
Hmm.
owed me because of what happened. And when I was not even 18, probably when I was 16, 17, me and my friends started drinking and smoking cigarettes, and then that turned to pot. And then I had a cousin that I idolized because he was a few years older, had the biggest truck in Worcester, had a woman on each arm, money flowing out of his pockets, and he was doing cocaine. So I'm like, oh, okay, I want to do that too. And so I really got into that, and then my aunt, I was so bad off that my aunt literally told me, get out, get a job, and don't come back. Yeah, which was tough love that I needed at the time. You know, and so I went out. and I came back later that day. I'm like, I'll be out of here in a month. I just joined the military.
And she was happy about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, she was like, I didn't mean
But
you to do
still.
that, but yeah, but still, she wasn't upset about it.
And then
You know,
you were in basic training and you explained that you were so skinny that they had to give you double meals.
yeah, yeah. I was because of the crack and the alcohol. I was really, really skinny. I mean, I almost didn't survive basic training. If not for the soldiers
Mm.
around me, I probably wouldn't have survived because they pushed me, and yeah, I had to eat. They made me eat like put extra on every plate that I
Wow.
had.
And then after that,
Yeah, yep,
you're
yep,
kind of shipped off to Fort Carson, Colorado, where you had a really traumatic experience in a tank.
yes. Um, I became an 11 Mike, which is a Bradley mechanized infantry Bradley driver, and I was driving for my XO at the time, and we went to the National Training Center where we didn't have our usual equipment. We had to use everything that they gave us, and they gave us a defective Bradley. And when we were firing down range once, and all of a sudden I just hear this loudest bang that I've ever heard in my life, and the whole Bradley filled up with smoke, and I see the barrel flying as it's filling up with smoke. I can hardly see out of my window, but I see the turret, the gun, the 25 millimeter shooting down range,
Wow.
like flying down range, like. And then my gunner and my BC are yelling. They got burnt severely and were blinded for 6 months. And so I got out of my seat. I ran around, um, opened up the hatch, the back hatch, and then I got in and I got them out. And by then, everybody was running over to my Bradley anyway and helping me out. But yeah, after that, I it was kind of
Hmm.
like Top Gun when Goose died. Maverick didn't want to go back into the cockpit. I for the remainder of the time, which I think was like 2 or 3 weeks,
Wow.
I wouldn't drive the Bradley. I was like, no, I'll. It was enough for me to sit in the back of the Bradley at the edge of the ramp. That's as far as I would go. You know, even now, I just put in 2 nights ago. I just put in my TBI service connected because I think, well, my doctors think that I still have issues because of my TBI that I experienced
TBI
during that.
is. Mm,
Oh, traumatic brain injury. Yes.
incredible, Charles. And then you were at Gitmo for 6 months. Tell us about that.
That was a trip. Um, we ended up being selected to go to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, for 1 month, and we all shipped over. And then at the end of that 1 month, they informed us that we were going to be there for another 5. My colonel wanted his full bird colonel, so he offered us up, in exchange for his next rank.
Hmm.
And yeah, that was an experience. We had a bunch of Cubans and Haitians trying to get over to the U.S. on
Wow.
nothing bigger than a door. I have a picture of a kid that is my son's age, was my son's age, like 9, and he lost everything. He lost his mother, his father, his siblings. The Coast Guard found him on a makeshift raft by himself. Everybody else was gone at that time. They all died in the ocean. And yeah, we our job there was
Hmm.
riot control because we couldn't let the Cubans and the Haitians just go into the U.S. We had to get them, properly do all the red tape and get them in the right way. So we had them in camps. We had tents up and all that for them, and there was a bunch of riots because they didn't want to be. It was like going from one, you know, their country that was holding them,
Hmm.
pretty much against their will, and then we did
Hmm.
kind of the same thing. We put them in camps with barbed wire and everything, and it was pretty much the same thing. We put them in from one detention to another. So there was a lot of riots, and yeah, we had a lot of different, like, just people throwing whatever they could at us. I've had
Hmm.
feces thrown at me, um, spit on, everything. It was a horrible time.
Wow. And
Yeah.
it's still going on now there, right?
Well, now they have the camps,
Right. They're
or
prisons.
now
Yeah.
they have prisons actually. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
and those are for like terrorists, etc. Yeah, people that they
I
can't
see.
put
Oh,
in the
and they
regular
weren't there when you
jails.
were there. Oh, I
No,
see.
no, they weren't there when I was there. No, no, just the Cubans and the Haitians were there. That happened. I was there in
After
'95, and I
9/11.
believe they built the
Right.
jails and
Right.
everything. And
Right.
after
I
nine
remember
eleven,
now.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that
yeah,
is horrible.
yeah,
And then just to kind of, build a picture for listening of, your background, you end the military, then your uncle and your grandfather die a month apart.
yeah. I back in 2000, right after 9/11. Um, I was living over at some friend's house, and my uncle became sick with cancer, and my grandfather the same at the same time, and they both ended up passing away a month apart due to cancer. And I got a picture of my uncle right there that I keep on my desk. And I fell into the deepest depression that I've ever fallen into. It was like
Again.
losing my father all over again twice. You know, not just with my uncle, but with my grandfather too, because my
Mm,
grandfather was my legal guardian, and my uncle was like my father figure. So yeah, that was just traumatic. I ended up
yeah.
carving on myself just to feel something other than what I was feeling. It got so bad that I took a bottle of sleeping pills, a whole bottle, wrote the words "F you world" on my arm, and fell asleep.
That
Carved, not wrote, but carved "F you world" on my arm and fell asleep. And my friends found me, and they sent me to the UMass Memorial Hospital. And then after that, I went to the Brockton VA, which was, for lack of a better term, psychiatric ward. And after that time there, I think I spent like 2 weeks there, something like that. And then they sent me to a place in Boston that was full. It was a homeless shelter, but it was full. So I ended up on the streets for a little bit, sleeping in ATM
The
machine.
vestibule, yeah.
You know, the vestibules. Yep, and eating whatever I could find. You know, and then weeks later, I found another shelter because I didn't know anything around Boston. Weeks later, I found another shelter. People brought me, you know, I got to know some of the other homeless people, and they showed me the ropes pretty much. And that's where my life, like, I totally turned around. Like, I figured out that the
Mm.
world didn't owe me, I owe the world. You know, it took me seeing the homeless people, it took me seeing the veterans that are in the different shelters to open my eyes and tell me that, hey, you're not alone in this.
Incredible. When you think about this, I mean, now we get to the real great part, where you start coping and you start exercising and martial arts. But when you think about everything in before that, Charles, do you separate that? Do you think that was me, but do you think that was such a different person? Do you like to talk about it? What is your feelings about all that time?
Well, I was actually just I put a post on social media
Saw that.
about tonight, and I was talking, yeah, and I was talking about it. Um, Meatloaf, the singer, he in one of his songs he has, "Is
Mm.
this a blessing or is this a curse? Could it get any better? Could it get any worse?" And a lot of my life I look at like that. You know,
Mm.
like I'm here now because I've had a traumatic life, and that's both a blessing and a curse. You know,
Right.
I wouldn't be talking to you if I had a normal life. You know, I wouldn't
Right.
be a seven-time author if I had a normal life. You know, so to answer your question, I do think that sometimes, like, I know I lived that life, but
Mm.
it seems like someone else. You know, and it's weird. Like I was just telling someone the other day that I I know that I've went through all this, but at the same time, it's like I look at my friend's picture over there that he committed suicide of uh, um a few years ago, and it's just baffling to me. Like I remember that life. I have a picture of him and me sitting right there, but then to hear about him taking his own life, hear about this and that, it's like it's hard to put the pieces together. And even because of my PTSD, I forget a lot, and memories just tend to leave me. Friends talk about stuff that we did in the past, and part of me is like, oh yeah, yep, yep. But the inside of me is like,
Wow.
I don't remember that. Yeah, yeah. Like it was someone else's life.
And how did you get in? I just recently started getting into martial arts, and I really love it. How did somebody introduce you to that and exercise? How did you make that kind of pivot?
I um I was living in Gardner, Massachusetts, in a veterans housing facility, and I wanted to get out and walk around, and I was walking one day, and I seen Gardner Martial Arts Academy, and so I went in one day. I walked by a few times, like I'm gonna go in there one day, And then I forced myself to go in there, and my sensei Vinny Smith was there, and we just started talking, and I told him my situation, and he took me on as a student. And Shaolin Kempo Karate, it's a amazing form. It's got like five different
Wow.
martial arts within one martial art. Like yeah, like some martial arts teach you how to punch and kick, but what do you do if you're on the ground? What do you do if you're in this situation or that situation? Shaolin Kempo Karate teaches you everything, like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, Kempo, this, that, karate, of course.
Do you still practice it now?
Yep. Right now, I'm experiencing shoulder injury, so I haven't in a little while.
And how
But
did it help?
other than that, yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
It taught me focus. Yeah, yeah. Like a lot of my life up to like 7, 8 years ago, probably. My
Really?
mind was like the Indy 500, constantly racing around and around and around. And then I was doing
Yeah.
that, and I started meditation, and I started
Yeah.
yoga, which I still do meditation and yoga every day. And yeah, that taught me to how to focus my thoughts and not have that race car going in a circle every second in my
It's
head.
amazing. I just started jujitsu only about a month now, but the discipline that happens in there is so attractive to me. The way that, like you say, the sensei, he just removes all ego because some of these people are different degree belts and they could really hurt people. But the idea, ego is gone. The idea is we all learn together, and just the way he levels the playing field like that, it's so inviting and it's so rewarding as well. It really is wonderful. I encourage people to do that. You
Mm,
mentioned meditation, and I find a common thread through people that I talk to that be that are high achievers, and meditation comes up a lot. And I'm so fortunate I got to sit through some of your meditations on your YouTube. You were doing something with the
nice.
suicides, the military, the 22.
Yeah, Mission 22. Yeah, I suicide is something that I'm very passionate about
Right.
because I'm a survivor, but because I know what, if we just hold on, what can happen in your life. Like if I took my life at that
Mm,
time that I tried to kill myself, not only would my son not be here
right.
because he's 9, that happened like 20 years ago, do the math. And not only that, but
Good for you.
I'm going to buy a house this year. Thank you. I have a nice truck that my life is together. I work with a amazing company called Aware Recovery Care, and my life has just taken
Mm,
such a turn, that it wouldn't have if I succeeded. Even being
yeah.
here, writing my books, doing this, doing that. I the list just goes on and on. You know, and I remember when my uncle passed away, or when he was sick, I wrote a poem for him called "The Battle of a Lifetime," and That's the name of I
Hmm.
named my addiction recovery book after that. But in that poem, I say I wish I could
Mm,
take his place. And now I
right.
look at it and I'm like, I'm alive for a reason. But before I was like, my life is nothing. Take me, leave him.
Are you a spiritual person, Charles?
That's a good question. I um I believe it all exists. I was raised Roman Catholic, so I believe in God and Jesus Christ and all that. But I've also come to realize that
Hmm,
I'm only human. So to say that like the Wiccan god and goddess or this god or that god, Zeus, Apollo, any of those,
hmm,
to say that those don't exist, I don't think is my place as a human being. And I've seen so many good, bad, and ugly in my life that I believe it's all real. I believe
hmm.
the devil is real. I believe God is real. I believe everything. It all exists, and it all depends on what we do with it. Like if you told me that that microphone in front of you was your God, and that's what got you through the day, I wouldn't argue. I'd be like, okay, that's what gets you through the day. That's good. That's my spirituality, I guess, per se.
Because during recovery and everything you've gone to through, and even at the reservation where you're meeting, so many different kind of aspects on spirituality. I wonder where you sat with that. It's a great answer that you have. It's just like, I have certain views, and other people's views is really none of my business. Going
Mm.
back to meditation and yoga, how you talk greatly about that. You talk about how people are afraid to meditate because they have thoughts through their head, and that's just the wrong way to view it.
Yeah, people, even my clients who wear recovery care, they like, oh, I don't want to meditate because I can't
Right.
stop myself from thinking. Like even the most dedicated monks that meditate hours on end have thoughts going into their head. But in order for you to meditate properly, you don't let it park
Mm,
in your head and take up space. You let it flow through, process and leave. It's like a good friend of mine told me years ago. He's like, picture a tree with leaves on it, and picture a river underneath the tree flowing. The thoughts are leaves on the tree, and they fall into the
mm,
into the river, and they float away, and then they're gone. That's the
mm.
to me that's a real trick to meditation. Is to not get caught up in your thoughts when you're
Yeah,
trying
it's
to
the next.
meditate.
Sorry, go ahead. You
Yeah,
please.
and go ahead. If you do it enough, then it comes into
That's
regular life where you're
That's an excellent analogy. I
yeah,
also heard the analogy of, picture traffic going, left and right in front of you, and those are your thoughts, and you're sitting away from it, looking at it from the outside. So you separate yourself from your thoughts. It's okay that they're there, but just try to separate yourself from them.
right, right.
I
Yeah,
love
that's a
the
perfect
I
analogy too.
meditate as often as possible. Just quiet. When you meditate, is it assisted or are you unassisted?
I do
That's right.
candle meditation
You
where
show in your
you're
tub.
I
Yeah.
I love that one. Yeah, yeah. But I also do
Oh, yeah, there's
ever
a
hear of the
there's a
Calm
few
app?
apps. Yeah, Calm is one, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah, Calm I do every morning. And I post there's a picture with a motivational thing after it, and I post that onto my Instagram and YouTube, or not Instagram and YouTube, Instagram
Facebook,
and
yeah.
Facebook.
A
Yeah,
great
yeah,
habit,
yeah.
I remember reading about it is, once way to start a great habit is, after I brush my teeth, I will floss. So I want to start flossing. So you just couple it with another habit you already have, and every day I do Duolingo. I'm trying to
Mm,
refresh my Italian. So I'm gonna now. That's a really good idea you just gave me. It's just with the Mind app or with the Calm app, I'm just going to add it to right after or right before that to kind of get in a routine. It helps a lot. How did you like writing,
Yeah.
Charles? I mean, you're a seven-time book. Did you like writing as a child? Hmm.
Not really. If you asked me if I was gonna be an author
Wow.
when I grew up, I'd tell you no. Yeah. Um, with my PTSD and attention span with that, I could read a page of a book, give it to
Wow.
you, and not know what I read. So I've actually
Wow.
written more books in my life than I've read. Even in college, I used YouTube and audiobooks to retain the information because for some reason
Hmm.
I can't read something and retain it.
And what do you do with the blank page? I mean, you start you know when you have the idea of the book, how do you start it?
That's a good question. I start off with the main topic, obviously, and then I like figure out what
Kind of storyboard,
different aspects yeah, like a storyboard. What different aspects I want to talk about. And like when I'm writing a book,
right?
I don't start at the beginning and work till the end. Like in that storyboard, if there's one topic that I feel like writing about today, it could be 50 pages in. I'll write about that topic. And I mean that's a self-help book way of how I do it. But with my
Hmm.
memoir, now that I think about it, I did it that way too.
And
Yeah, I picked
do
the
you
subjects that
journal
I
every
wanted to
day?
talk about.
Do you journal at all? You don't journal.
I don't.
So you just have an
No,
idea of a
no,
book, and I'm
no.
going to dedicate the next X amount of days, weeks, months to writing this book. That's what you do. Wow.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And a book normally takes me
Wow.
6 months to a year to write. Yeah.
I can't wait to ask this question now. And so, the podcast, we talk a lot about discipline. I lost a lot of weight, and people always ask me, how did you lose the weight? Like there's some secret to it. And I just say, just discipline. Doctor said I'm not going to see my daughter when she graduates, which, by the way, she just graduated last week. But yeah, thank you.
Oh,
It's
nice.
crazy to think.
Congrats.
But so,
Yeah.
given your history in the military with addiction, with family loss, with everything that you've gone through, how is your view of discipline now versus then? And how does it play a role in your life, Charles?
Well, back then
Really?
I had no discipline whatsoever until I went into the military, and then that taught me discipline. Yeah, when I was little, I
None.
had no discipline whatsoever. No, no, not in myself anyway. No, no. And now I have a lot of discipline in my
Mm,
life, like with the martial arts. Even with a shoulder injury, it's hard to not
mm,
do
mm.
it because I'm so used to doing it. And with the yoga and the meditation, I do that like clockwork. And I try to write a few times a week. I try to put time aside a few times a week. If even if I even if I think about new topics to write about and not write anything, at least I did something in the upcoming book.
And it's just incredible to me. And you have a son now. Things are going very well. You get to see him. I mean, you're still not without tragedy. Your cousin that you mentioned before was missing, and he had addiction, and unfortunately, with tragedy that happened there. Certainly, it's not like our life can be perfect,
Hmm.
even as you battle through these. And you mentioned that you don't go into crack dens and places like this because you don't trust yourself.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. I still I don't know what I would do
Right.
if I was around it. So I just don't
Right.
even, not like I want it, because I don't, but I don't trust myself enough to put myself in
But
that
the
situation.
remarkable discipline and what I love and respect and get inspired about you most, Charles, is not only did you turn yourself around and you're doing it for your son and you're doing it for yourself and but you're writing books, you're taking clients on, you have a certificate now where you're actually helping others. You so many people don't take that extra step and okay, look, this is what happened to me. I'm going to be fine now. But you're just actually opening yourself up to others and using these life experiences to help them. That's absolutely remarkable, Charles. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So, I just,
Yeah.
I think that's why I'm here. Besides my son, I think the reason that I'm here is to inspire others, to help others, and that's why I guess that's what I use to make sense of it all. You know, but I use that. I use
Yeah.
my story to help others. Like my clients, I'll sit there and on a first meeting, we'll sit there and exchange stories. And then that opens up a you know if it's a veteran, it opens up a brotherhood. Between the two of us. And that's what it helps me. It's weird. A lot of people they don't want to tell their story because they're
Right.
ashamed or they're afraid to tell it. But with me and with a lot of other people that I know in the same boat, um, we tell our stories and it helps. Because we know that somewhere out there it's going to help somebody. You know, like I used to work in a detox, and I would tell my story, and clients who come up to me afterwards and like thank you, you know, come up and shake my hand and you just changed my life, that sort of thing, and that is
Hmm.
more rewarding than any other payment whatsoever.
If you could change any part of your life, would you?
That's another good question. um,
Because if you did, you wouldn't be the person you are now.
yeah, I think about that a lot. I do. Like, sometimes if I stayed in the military, I'd be
Mm,
able to retire by now. But the chances of me meeting my son's mother when I was in the military
mm,
are slim to none. My I wouldn't be, even if I was still alive, because I would probably go to overseas multiple times. If I was alive, I probably wouldn't be an author. I probably wouldn't be doing this. So I don't think I would change anything. I mean, some
right.
things, yeah, like my mother and my father. I would love to have them. I would let
Wow.
my father would be over 100 by now, honestly. But I would love to have my mother in my life right now. And my uncle and
Mm.
things like that. Yeah, I would love to be able to change that outcome. But I've realized a long time ago that you can't. And you just have to. You can either let this situation take you over, or you can take it over yourself. Like I said in the beginning, if you fall down
Mm.
10 times, you get up 11. You know,
Absolutely inspiring, Charles. What motivates you now?
thank you,
Yeah.
my kid, and people, people around me, the good people in my life, like there's been so much going on in this country right now. With COVID, with the shooting last earlier this week, that we sometimes forget about the good people. We look at all the evil and the bad and the this and that, and we get swallowed up by it. I'm a firm believer that this country is in a, as far as
Mm,
mental health, we're in an all time low. So many people are experiencing depression, anxiety, and PTSD. I mean, this you don't have to have direct contact with a situation in order for you to have PTSD. Like I'll never forget I
yes.
after the marathon bombing in Boston, me and my ex, who was still together, we brought my the kids to Hawaii, and there was people in Hawaii that were really shaken up, crying about the marathon bombing. And people, you don't have to be like in a situation
Right.
for it to affect you. And I think that's a lot of what's going on with people right now. Like I was talking to a special forces client of mine, and he was telling me that he just heard in the news that I think in the past week there was like 20, or past few weeks there was like 26 mass shootings. And people just, it swallows you up. If you don't let it. That's why I a lot of my
Mm,
books are on coping skills, because your coping skills need to be stronger than the environment around you in order for you to remain positive and a healthy state of mind.
yes. Mental health is a serious issue, and the good news is that more than ever we're hearing athletes, celebrities talk about battling it themselves, which we've never really heard, and we are recently. So I think even us talking about it, it's getting better in that we're more of aware of it now. It's not where it should be, but let's start talking about more. And the more the celebrities can talk about it, then people don't be ashamed of it if they have it. And major athletes, we saw that Olympian Simone Biles, who said she didn't actually compete in some of the Olympic events because she has these kinds of issues, and it only helps. It only helps others and helps themselves. I hope that conversation continues.
Exactly.
How do you measure success, Charles?
I don't measure it in wealth. I mean, talk about all the
Mm,
celebrities: Robin Williams,
mm,
Chester Bennington, suicide because they suffered from depression. And so I measure success by how good my kid is doing in school. I rate success by how my week went with clients, how I how much I got done during the week. As far as like advertising for my books or writing for my books, or you know doing extra projects that I want to do.
mm.
That's how I rate success. Yeah, I don't rate it like overall. I mean, right now I'm in a better position now than I've been in well over a decade financially, but I don't look at that as success. You know,
And yeah, that's right.
growth is a huge
Yeah, personal
factor of
growth.
success.
Yeah. it's
Yeah.
it's always
Yep.
fascinating to me when I ask people that question, how very few say money, and they say similar things to yourself: growth and family. And um, so going back to the very first question I asked you is like, what do you want people to, learn, what you hope to achieve from your story? And it's don't give up. And I echo that. And you're
Yeah.
showing that now, and you didn't. And it's just absolute inspiration, Charles Smith. Thank you so much for your time today. How can we get in touch with you? Your YouTube
Thank
channel
you.
is excellent. By the way, Charles, you should have a podcast. You're very good at talking completely by yourself, and which I'm not, by the way. I'm very good in conversations, but I can't. And you're very good at, you go a good 20 minutes, and it's captivating, and you do a great job of bringing it all together. You lit the candle, and you show how you meditate. And there's other ones you have where you go through your books. I'll just throw that out. You should have a podcast, but please, how
Yep.
can we get in touch with you?
Lifelongexperience.net has all my information on it. It's got all my books. It's got a contact page that people can get in touch with
You're
me
on
on.
LinkedIn, you're on
Yep.
Facebook, you're on Twitter, YouTube that I
I'm
mentioned,
on.
Instagram,
Yes.
lifelong experience. Uh, Charles Smith, thank you so
Yep.
much.
Yep.
I look
Yep.
forward to one day sitting down with you face to face, having a cup of coffee. I'm not that far from you. If I ever find myself up north, I would look forward to that. And thank you so much for your time today. That,
Yeah, I would love that,
that's
definitely.
right.
Two
I
fellow
can't tell with that
Italians.
last
I am
name.
Italian.
I say, Charles. Oh,
My family's last
there
name
you
is
go. That'll
Lorenzo.
do it. Charles, thank you so much. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources, and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media: Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information: the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.